Award-winning programming from the Fairfax Network is available at our video store at www.fcps.edu/Fairfax Network or call 1-800-233-3277.
The following program is a production of the Fairfax Network, Fairfax County Public Schools, funded in part by the Virginia Satellite Educational Network.
Welcome to Meet the Author. My name is Della Kidd, and I'm here at the MTA studio. Joining me today is author Jennifer Holm. She'll be sharing her ideas about the writing process and talking about her books. Jennifer received a Newbery Honor for her very first children's novel titled Our Only May Amelia. Some of her other book titles include Boston Jane, an Adventure, The Creek, and her most recent historical fiction book, Penny from Heaven. She's also been busy writing a graphic novel series called Baby Mouse, which is illustrated by her brother, Matthew Holm. Jennifer, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Della.
Well, I'm looking forward to chatting with you. We have a great show planned for today. This is a live presentation, and in just a few minutes, we're going to open up our phone lines to welcome your questions. Our number nationally is 1-800-231-6359. If you're calling us locally, you may reach us at 703-978-1636. Jennifer, I have thoroughly enjoyed reading all of your books, and you've got such a variety of them. For viewers who may not be familiar with you, with some of your work and you, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm known mostly as a historical fiction writer, and my first novel, Our Only May Amelia, was actually inspired by my father's family. They're Finnish, and they're from the West Coast, Washington State, so I really mined his family's history for that novel. And my most recent novel, Penny from Heaven, is inspired by my mother's Italian-American family in New Jersey. So luckily, I have a very eccentric family, and it's great material.
Lots to draw from.
Absolutely.
Well, Jenny, we have some students from Rural Hall Elementary School in North Carolina, and they've read your book, Our Only May Amelia.
Great.
And we have some pre-taped questions. Let's go to the tape.
Rural Hall has some questions about your great books. Why is Grandmother Patience so mean?
Did your great aunt really live in Astoria?
Did your great aunt really know any Chinook Indians?
These are some great questions. Let's go to the first. Grandmother Patience. Why was she so mean? And her name was pretty ironic because she was not a patient lady at all.
No, and that's what everybody loves about her. There's these things when you're writing historical fiction that sometimes you can't even make it up. And the truth is that Grandmother Patience was the name of a real woman in my family named Patience Smith. So I actually sort of stole it from the headlines. And she was kind of known in the family for being not a very nice grandmother. She had a big wooden cane, and she would whack the kids with it. So I didn't really even make very much up. I mean, she's based on a real person, so.
The next question was, did your great aunt really live in Astoria?
Auntie Alice lived in Nacelle, which is across the river from Astoria. But I had a lot of family who lived in Astoria and still do actually have quite an amount of family in Astoria.
The final question was, did your great aunt really know the Chinook Indians?
Well, I'll never really know because she lived 100 years ago, and I actually never knew my great aunt Alice. But the Chinook Indians were neighbors in Nacelle, and they lived there too, so I have to assume that she saw them in town and were even friends with them, I hope.
That's probably very likely.
Yeah.
Well, we have a few email questions about Our Only May Amelia. This one says, Dear Ms. Holm, did you ever visit the Nacelle River?
Yes, I did. In fact, I was just there in July for FinFest, which was a big cultural festival for Finnish immigrants.
And that area had a lot of impact on the characters in your stories as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The next question is from Justin in Coral Gables, Florida. And he asks, where exactly did you find your great aunt's diary? And have you ever been to Finland and visited your ancestors' home?
Well, actually, my Aunt Betty, my dad's sister, found my great aunt's diary in my late grandmother's attic after she died. So it was kind of, they were cleaning out her house. And I haven't been to Finland. I'd very much like to go, but a lot of my family has been. So one of these days, I will get there.
That's good. Our next email question is from Mary, and she wants to know, were you ever a tomboy like me, Amelia?
Just a little bit,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Well, I know that you grew up in a house with 4 brothers. Tell us about what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 4 brothers, you have to learn to fit in or you're in trouble. So I could climb trees and, you know, play kickball and run around the woods and throw a pretty good punch. So, yeah, I was a tomboy.
We're actually looking at a picture of you playing baseball now. Did you play throughout elementary school?
I did. I played softball, and we actually won one year.
Well, growing up in a household of boys certainly impacted Jennifer Holm's life and influenced her writing. Our MTA crew met up with Jenny and her younger brother and illustrator Matt to learn how their Baby Mouse series started. Let's take a look.
Well, I guess you could say it started a long time ago. My mom came home from the hospital and she had a new baby. and I was really hoping for a little sister. I already had 3 brothers. So she showed up with this new baby and it was a boy, and I found out and I went and cried in my room. And then she gave me a toy, so it was okay.
Things got better after that.
When we were growing up, we read a lot of comic books. We were just like huge comic book fans.
Every year we went on summer vacation, piling all those kids into the car.
5 kids.
5 kids into the car, trying to keep us quiet going down to the shore.
Poor mother.
So she gave us all a bag of comic books at the start of each trip.
I always complained about it a little bit because there were never any really great girl characters in the comic books. There was like Wonder Woman, you know, and she flew around in her gold underwear, you know, and that just wasn't me. And I wasn't into the romantic comic books at all, and so I would complain. I was a little complainer, and nobody really paid attention to me but Matt because he was a budding artist. He was always doodling and scribbling in his notebooks when he should have been doing homework, and he had this comic strip. What was it called?
It was The Fast Lane.
The Fast Lane. It was about an alien. He was like really obsessed with aliens.
Yeah, this alien family. Average, everyday family, they were just aliens.
After I moved to New York, Matt moved to New York, and for the first time in a long time, we were in the same city together. I had been reading a lot of comic books, and I felt that things still hadn't changed. There still weren't a lot of great younger girl characters, and so I kind of had a bad day at work, what we call Baby Mouse Day, you know, where you're late for school, you forget your gym shorts, you know, you spill the meatloaf all over yourself at lunch, you know, just every single thing goes wrong. You get yelled at by your teacher, and like I had one of those days at work, and I came home, and I was very cranky. I was like, oh, I had such a bad day. And my husband sort of said, you are so irritable. And this image of this very irritable little mouse popped into my head, and she had her hands on her hips, and she had wild whiskers. I just, you know, did a little ink drawing of her on a napkin, and the next time I saw Matt, I'm like, what do you think? And you actually didn't laugh at me, which was good.
Yeah, it seemed preposterous.
And I said, you know, what about doing like a graphic novel for girls or for kids? Baby Mouse herself was inspired by me and my elementary school tragedies and travails. I didn't like math. I didn't like getting up in the morning. There's a mean girl in my school, not a big dodgeball fan. In Baby Mouse Rockstar, she's a flute player. When I was growing up, flute was like the big popular instrument for girls, and I was the worst at it. I was a 26th flute out of 26, so Baby Mouse experiences my lack of musical ability. In Baby Mouse Beach Babe, she has to go on a family vacation, and she's kind of frustrated with her younger brother, which was an easy one for me to write. I'm kind of working out all my elementary school demons in Baby Mouse.
Jenny, the collaboration between you and your brother, that's delightful. And so are the Baby Mouse stories.
Aww.
Tell me, I know that probably all of us have had at least one Baby Mouse day. I know I've had many. How about you?
Yes, very much so. You know, and a Baby Mouse day is just, you know, kind of a bad day. And
Yeah.
it seems to tie into school too. You know, you oversleep, you forget your sneakers, you forget your lunch, you get yelled at, there's a pop quiz in your first class.
Just
I mean,
doesn't seem like anything's going right for
Right.
you. Yeah. Is Baby Mouse based on you, or is it based on someone else?
Well, Baby Mouse is really based on me. I mean, a lot of the experiences that Baby Mouse has are experiences that I actually had. So I'm really mining my childhood for that.
What about Baby Mouse's friend Wilson?
Wilson.
Who's that based on?
Yeah, Wilson is kind of like a really mellow guy, and he's a good friend. And I really based him more on Matt, and he's a weasel, and we decided to use a weasel for Wilson because Matt has a ferret as a pet. And so a ferret is a weasel,
Right.
so Wilson the weasel we thought was cute.
What about Felicia Furry Paws? Who is she based on?
Well, I can't mention her name. But everybody has a Felicia Furry Paws in her life. There's always a mean girl at school, and I had this mean girl at school who tortured me.
Yeah.
And she was one of these girls that would talk about, I'm having a slumber party on Friday night, and I'm inviting blah, blah, blah. And you'd be standing right there and thinking, aren't I invited?
Aw.
Don't I get to go?
That can be hurtful. Well,
Yeah.
I've got to ask you, why mice?
Mice, yes. Well, this is why mice. When I was a kid, like many girls, my dad made me this beautiful dollhouse. But instead of little dolls, I had all these costumed mice. And I have a ton of them, but this is
One's
sort of
wearing a mask.
this is Wonder Mouse, and this is Valentine's Girl, and this is Ghost Mouse. And this is just Pajama Girl. She's got a little water bottle. And so we actually had a mouse house, and I had the house, and Matt, when he came along, my dad built a garage on the back of the house, and he had the garage attached to the mouse house, and his own mice. So we played with mice growing up, so I'm fond of mice.
Great for the imagination. Now, you've got a notebook here that I really would like for you to share with everyone because it's got a very mysterious kind of title to it.
Top secret baby mouse ideas. One of the things when we're working on this series is that sometimes I'll just get some, really fun ideas about what to do books on. And so in my little baby mouse notebook, I'll just have scribbles of ideas, and I'll keep a running list of maybe, future titles. And here's a page with some future titles. And who knows if they'll ever be made, Baby Mouse, Mad Scientist, and Baby Mouse for President, and Baby Mouse Poet. So, some of them are pretty silly. But some of them might make it into a book.
Well, and I'm noticing that you even wrote with pink, and pink is a theme that we're seeing throughout the Baby Mouse books. What's the significance of pink?
I like pink. In spite of growing up with all those boys, I had to carve out a little girl niche in my house, and my mother, insisted on painting my bedroom pink. So even though I was growing up with all these boys and all these male influences, I had a little pink haven, so I'm fond of pink.
And you used pink throughout Baby Mouse to do what? It helps send a message to your reader. Tell us about that.
One of the things is if you're not used to reading graphic novels or comic books, especially in Baby Mouse, we wanted a way to differentiate between what's going on her day-to-day life, which is reality, and reality for her is in black and white, and her fantasies. So when she's in a fantasy and she's daydreaming, we use a pink wash. So that's kind of just a visual cue to tell us, she's really not being attacked by a squid in the hallway. That's a fantasy. So it's kind of a nice little cue.
Nice visual technique. How many Baby Mouse books are there in the series?
Well, we're contracted for 8, and we're going to hopefully do more. And we have 4 out right now, and this is the 5th Baby Mouse book. This is called Baby Mouse Heartbreaker, and this comes out on December 26th, day after Christmas. So it's a nice Christmas present for Matt and I.
And Camp Baby Mouse is coming out next year, right?
Yes, Camp Baby Mouse is coming out in May, so get ready, campers.
Can you imagine working side by side with your brother or sister? Would you be able to get anything done? Well, right now we're going to see this brother and sister team in action as they work together on the cover of Camp Baby Mouse. And we'll get a sneak peek of the finished product. We'll be right back.
All right, so what did you have in mind for the cover?
So I pictured her very heroic on the cover. So she's just come to the rescue. It's like dun 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 dun, Baby Mouse is here.
Right.
Save the day. Scout Baby Mouse.
Okay, cool. You want her in the little camper outfit?
I want her in a camper outfit, this hokey camper shirt.
So we'll have like a t-shirt or like a
Actually, I think a t-shirt kind of out back.
Right, so have the cuffs. And should she have a little kerchief, like the camp kerchief?
She gotta have the little neckerchief. She has to have a good hat too.
Oh, should we have like a park ranger kind of hat with a little pinched top? Like the state trooper kind of hat?
Yeah, that's funny.
All right, she's gonna be in camper shorts?
Camper shorts, but those long shorts, like below the knee shorts.
Yeah.
And she should have like a belt with stuff hanging off of it. You're getting better at this. That's pretty good.
Okay, so let's lay out just the rough page then. So, all right, so we'll have the tent. Let's scan.
The Baby Mouse logo should be straight.
Yeah, that'll be straight on.
Straight on, and that camp will be sort of skewed, like going north.
Right.
Like somebody just went with a stamp and bang. Yeah, like a stamp.
Bring the black up a little bit. Get some better contrast.
Jenny, it looks like you and Matt were having a lot of fun working together that day. Is that the way you work together all the time?
You know, that was really an unusual day for us because usually we're not in the same room together. I live in Maryland and Matt lives in upstate New York, and we're about a 6-hour drive from each other. So we have a virtual collaboration. We use the internet, we use the phone, we IM each other, and so we do everything long distance. And this is how it all starts, actually. It starts with a manuscript. I'll do the first draft, and then Matt will put his 2 cents in. And what we use is what's called a classic storyboard. This is what they use to make television commercials and movies and animated films, and all starts with these 4 little boxes on a page. The top boxes usually have a picture of what's going to be, or maybe some type. The second row describes the action, and the bottom row has a dialogue. And basically this is just, you know, it's a really nice roadmap for Matt and our editor to get a sense of what's going to be happening on the page. So after we go back and forth on the manuscript a few times, and our editor's happy with it, then Matt takes over and he does quick thumbnail sketches of what he thinks the action is going to look like, just with pencil. And then he scans all of those sketches with a scanner and uploads them where we have like a server, and then I download them in Maryland and print them out. And then I sit at my dining room table for a couple weeks and I cut and paste, and that's the point where I lay out the entire novel. And it's also a really fun opportunity to maybe expand on a fantasy or say, you know, this isn't really working here. I give him a lot of, like, I'll just scribble in my little ideas, and then he'll take that and I'll send that whole packet back to him, and he'll do really good approximation ink drawings with a Sharpie marker. And then once our editor's happy with the Sharpie marker version, then he adds pink, and he does the final art digitally, so which is to say he will use what's called a Wacom tablet and a stylus, and so he'll draw on the stylus, which is connected to a computer, so the final art in Baby Mouse is actually digital. It's not paper art.
And you brought with you the draft form of something that would end up looking like the finished product.
Exactly. I brought the first round of art after we sent it to the printers. So this is Matt's digital version of it, and we've sent it to the printers to see how it looks like. But as you can see by all the Post-it notes, we've obviously have made a lot of mistakes because we're not perfect. And we have to kind of go through all 96 pages and see what we've forgotten. And we tend to forget her whiskers a lot, her tail. We forget pink, like colors. She always has a little pink heart on. So this is where we catch our own mistakes. So.
Well, Jenny, we're going to stop there for a moment because we have a phone call. Let's stop there for a moment.
Great.
Hi, Ryan. What is your question today?
What is your favorite book growing up?
Oh, that is easy. My favorite book growing up was a book by Lloyd Alexander called The Book of Three, and he is a very famous fantasy writer, so I'm a huge Lloyd Alexander fan.
Jenny, we also have some more email questions for you to answer. This one says, Dear Ms. Holm, how long does it take you to write a book, and what type of research do you do?
Well, for my novels like Our Only May Amelia and Penny from Heaven, it takes me about 2 to 3 years. And part of the reason is, you know, I'm really traveling back in time and I really need to sink myself into the time period. So for Penny from Heaven, I was writing about the 1950s, and I was born in the late 1960s, so I missed that time period. So I had to do a lot of research. For instance, in Penny from Heaven, I talk about the Brooklyn Dodgers. They had a very famous World Series match that year. And so I watched the whole 1953 World Series. And I listened to a lot of radio shows. Radio was very popular in the 50s. And there was a show called Fibber, McGee, and Molly, which was one of my mother's favorites growing up. So I listened to a lot of Fibber, McGee, and Molly. And it gave me a sense of the time, or maybe sayings they had. And it was just a really good cultural landmark.
And what about, I know you brought some other books here that you used for research for Boston Jane.
Absolutely. And when I was doing Boston Jane, I was kind of in the same fix, which is to say Boston Jane takes place in the 1850s. That's even longer. And, you know, I wanted to know, what was it like then? Did they eat different foods? And so this is actually what's called a receipt book. It's really a recipe book from the early 1800s. And I just love it. It has all these hilarious recipes, but it was also in a kitchen fire, and it was burned up, and then it was sewn back together, and it smells sort of stinky still, you know. And so I looked at that, and then I also, you know, how did young women behave in the 1850s? And this is a little book of etiquette. It's called The Young Lady's Friend, and there were lots of little etiquette books to tell how young women to behave back then.
Yeah,
So I read a lot of those.
We're fortunate that so many of these things have survived for so many years.
It's incredible.
Jenny, we have another call.
Great.
Hi, tell us what your name is and what is your question?
Hi, this is Natalie, and I was just wondering, how long did it take you to become a published author?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, I started working on Our Only May Amelia when I was in my early 20s, and it didn't really get published until I was almost 30, so that's like 7 years, so a long time, I guess. Good question.
Thank you, Courtney. We have another call. I think that was Natalie, actually. We have a phone call. Please tell us your name and what is your question today for Jenny?
Hi, Miss Holm. My name is Courtney. I was wondering which character most resembles you. I would say that Penny most resembles me, just an average girl trying to fit in.
Oh.
That's a lot of us.
I know, and I think I feel really close to Penny because I feel exactly how the caller described, just an average girl trying to fit in.
And of course, Penny's the main character of Penny from Heaven.
Right.
And you drew on a lot of your experiences of growing up in a house of boys for that book as well.
Yeah. Well, Penny from Heaven, you know, I really wanted to explore and touch upon the whole Italian-American experience.
Yes.
My mother's father's family are Italian-American, and they have just such a rich culture. And so when I was writing that book, I had the opportunity to interview all my family members and my cousins, and I have some great little paraphernalia from Penny. This is actually a picture of my mom when she was 11, which is the age of Penny in the book. And this, in the book, there's a butcher shop that her family owns called Felucci's, and in my family, we actually owned a butcher shop too, and this is actually the receipt holder from the cash register. After you paid, they'd stick the receipt on this big
So
spike.
that it wouldn't blow away.
Exactly. And it's kind of deadly looking. And also, my favorite little memorabilia from Penny is this is the lucky bean. In my mom's family, she had this uncle who was a little eccentric, who used to give her, they're actually just seed pods which wash up on the shore in Florida, but he used to give her these and say, these are Italian lucky beans. So this is my mother's original lucky bean. So it's for good luck.
That's
so the
wonderful
lucky
that
bean
you
is
still
in the
have
book.
that.
Yeah.
Lots of experiences that you drew on. Well, we have another phone call.
Excellent.
Hi, tell us your name and what is your question today?
Hi, Miss Holm. My name's Samuel. Was there a character that you like to write about more than the others?
That's a good question. You know, I think I really like to write about Baby Mouse. You know, because I can really identify with her, and because she's a series, so I have to keep coming up with ideas. So I would say Little Baby Mouse. Good question.
Baby Mouse can have so many adventures.
Exactly. And she can do things I can't do. So.
Right. We have another email for you. This question is from W.R. Thomas Middle School in Miami, and the book club there in Miami, Florida. And they would like to know, from the time you began writing, how long was it before your first book was published?
So I started writing I was either 22 or 23, and it was published when I was 29, so 7 years. So I'm not an overnight success, and I would say that most writers aren't. They don't just knock their book out in 2 months, and it's on the New York Times bestseller list with J.K. Rowling the next day.
No, it takes a lot of revisiting, a lot of drafts and editing and back and forth communication.
Yeah, it was a very slow process, but it was very satisfying.
How many revisions did that particular book take?
May.
Approximately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It took a lot. I mean, honestly, this is the big dark secret for me as a writer. I'm a big reviser. There are writers who like to revise and writers who don't. I like to revise camp. And I am averaging like 10 to 12 drafts per novel. It's pretty much. And so for May, easily 12.
When you're in the middle of revisions, do you give your manuscript to someone else to get their opinion on it, to get a different perspective?
Absolutely. Like for instance, with just working on Penny from Heaven, I obviously had my editor was very involved, and an editor is kind of like a teacher. You know, they look at your manuscript and they kind of go through with their red pen and mark things that don't make sense to them. But also my husband always reads my manuscript, and because Penny was about my mother's childhood, my mother read it. About 3 of her elderly cousins read it. I had a lot of, because it was very rich with Italian-American cultural history, I actually had some Italian-American advisors on it, so I had some Italian-American professors read it. So it was really fun to just hear all the feedback.
Okay, so you used authentic research as well as getting some really authentic expert
Yes.
feedback on the product after you've written it as well.
Yeah, and I like to do that. I, of course, like to take what my family's take on things, like what happened in my specific Italian-American family. But this, I also wanted it to be accessible to people who weren't from New Jersey necessarily. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, I don't speak Italian, that my spelling was correct, and that some of the traditions that we had in my family were, you know, similar across the board.
Keeping that audience in mind of who's
Yeah.
picking up that book to read it. Tell me, do you have a set strategy for approaching the writing process? Because I know you showed us the storyboard that you use for Baby Mouse, and that's a graphic organizer tool that we use with students, you know, during the day. But what about when you're doing your chapter books, your historical fiction?
Well, what I do is I usually have a pretty good idea of sort of the beginning, the middle, and the end, although it often changes. And I have a sense of who the character is. Like, I can hear the character's voice in my head. That's the most important part, is that I know who the character is. And then I just draw a little arc and say, this is the beginning, this is the middle, the end. These are the three things that need to happen, and then fill it in.
That helps to guide you.
Yeah, and I sort of just do a chapter at a time. And I find writing the first draft to be so hard, very, very hard. But once I get through that first draft, I'm fine, because once I have something to work with and to revise, I'm very comfortable.
We have a phone call. This one is from Michelle. Hi, Michelle. What is your question?
Hi. This is from Flint Hill. Have you always liked to write since you were little?
I did. I have always liked to write, but I would say some of my earlier writing was probably not very good. You know, when I was in elementary school, I wrote a story about a water-breathing dragon, and I tried to get it published. I was like in 3rd grade. But I got a few rejections, so, you know, I guess I had to keep working at it. Good question.
It is a good question. Just don't give up. You've got lots of great ideas, and put them in paper, and having a notebook to keep those ideas in, to record them in case you forget them 2 days later. It's a great idea for young writers.
Yep, good question.
We have another email question. This one is asking you, Dear Ms. Holm, will there be a sequel to Our Only May Amelia?
There will be a sequel to Our Only May Amelia, and actually I should start working on it next year. I'm very excited about it.
Is she going to be? Is the setting going to be similar to? Is she going to be immediately the next stage of her age group, or is she going to be an adult? Or
nope, it's going to pick up right where the first book left off.
Oh, that's
so
exciting.
She won't have aged at all. Yeah.
That's exciting. We have another phone call.
Excellent.
Caller, tell us your name and what is your question today?
Hello, Mrs. Holm. My name is Madison, and here's my question. What Finnish foods have you tried, and which are your favorites?
Finnish foods.
Finnish foods.
What have you tried?
Well, you know, the Finns. They have some weird food and some good food. They do a lot of this pickled fish stuff, which I don't really like very much. Actually, I don't like it at all. They do really good cookies, and I would say the most popular Finnish dish in my house is something called lakslota, which is kind of like creamy potatoes with salmon. So imagine gratin potatoes with salmon, and it's very comforting, so I like that. We eat that a lot.
Well, you know what? We've got to go. We're out of time already. It has been so much fun talking to you today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It's been great. Our guest today has been author Jennifer Holm. If you would like to learn more about her books, visit her website at www.jenniferholm.com. To learn more about our upcoming authors and the Fairfax Network, visit us at www.fcps.edu/FairfaxNetwork. For the Fairfax Network, I'm Della Kidd. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep dreaming.